amazing to know that 20 plus years later, it still fit. Now, here's the thing that we're going to talk about today, and all of the wonderful associates who are helping us out today, I'm going to go ahead and give them a little bit of hand. See, it's amazing what God can do and what God can use to get you to where you are. Today, my focus is the Ballboy's lessons for leadership. I spent a lot of time on the floor mopping up the sweat of million-dollar athletes. It's as glamorous as you're thinking. It is. To see Michael Jordan's bead of sweat drip, and I catch it. It's amazing. It's all that you thought it would be. But even in that, God has taught me some things over the last 20 years from that moment. And I want to focus on just one element today. The element that I want to focus on is a servant's heart. A servant's heart. The heart that produces in our lives as business leaders long-term success. See, if we have the right heart, we won't be a one-hit wonder. See, that's how come we can look at the Bill Gates of the world and the Steve Jobs of the world and say, wow, they have changed the world. There was something about their heart that caused them to produce products that you and I would desire and would produce in them longevity. Now we look at them and we say, well, do they have a relationship with Jesus? I don't know. But they had a heart condition that produced for them the results that they wanted. Now, in this room, there are business owners, retirees, small level employees who are just getting started, owners, CEOs. All of us want to end our life in the natural, beyond the spiritual, successful. Otherwise, we wouldn't get out of bed every day with a goal to achieve the goal that we have for the day. Am I right? Now, here is a point. Now, I also brought for you guys, just so you know, a card. And on the back of the card, it has notes. So that you can document anything you like. If you feel like God says something to you today that is important, I wanted to provide you with a resource. The first thing that I am learning since I began in 1991, 20 years ago, is that to lead is to serve. Can you say that? To lead is to serve. Now, if you and I have the right heart, it produces in our life long-term success. I want to prove this to you. Has anyone ever heard of Edwin C. Barnes? Let me put it to you this way. Has anyone ever heard of Thomas Edison? Yes. Wonderful. Well, you know Edwin C. Barnes, but you may not know his story. See, Edwin C. Barnes was a guy similar to you and I. He had a goal. He wanted to be a partner with the great Thomas Edison. But he didn't know how he was going to do it. So one day he was bold enough and he went and knocked on the door where Thomas Edison worked. Thomas Edison looked at the guy and was like, what do you want? He said, I have come to work for you. Thomas Edison said, I have absolutely no work for you. But looking at the guy, he could see his passion. And Keyes, he said, hey, listen, I've got a spot for you. But the thing was that he gave him all of the stuff he didn't want to do. It had absolutely no value to the partnership. But Edwin said, hey, you know what? I'll do it. See, because to lead is to serve. He knew that he wanted to be a partner with Thomas Edison, and the only way he could get his foot in the door is to serve. See, opportunities come along in our lives so many times as business leaders through the back door. We're saying, I want this opportunity, and I'm going to make it happen this way. But so many times, opportunities sneak in. And it looks like work that produces absolutely no success. So here it is. Edwin goes, knocks on Edison's door, and he wants to be a partner. Edison says, you can have all of the work that I don't want to do. I want you to pick up the trash. So he seizes the opportunity, and all of a sudden, Edison decides that he wants to create the Ediphone. And all of the people who are employed by Thomas Edison don't even believe in it. Not selling anything. Mr. Bond says, hey, this is my opportunity. So he goes, hey, Mr. Edison, give me a chance. I love the opportunity. Before you know it, they sold out of everything they had. And Mr. Edison looked over at him and said, hey, guess what? I think you should be my partner. To lead is to serve. Here's what I'm learning over the last 20 years. And I'm going to tell you my story in a minute. I promise you I will. But I'm motivated by guys who have been in my steps when I've got these lofty dreams. And they seem so far away, and I feel so unqualified. And I'm learning that to lead is to serve. So my first step, I have to have a servant's heart. That's why we're in the businesses that we're in. That's why we're serving in the employment sector that we are. It's because we want to serve the company or the people that God has called us to. So here's a little nugget that God gave me. He said, Damon, the smallest of tasks can produce the greatest of harvests in the development of your leadership. See, when it seems like it's so insignificant to the person beside you, even your cleaning up and starting off in a janitorial position can produce for you great harvest. Let me tell you a great story about Microsoft. Stories say that even the janitor, when they were offered stock, when they finally cashed it in 25 years, they decided to retire. They were hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in wealth. Oh, but you're just cleaning the building. No opportunity. To lead is to serve. See, the smallest of tasks can produce in our life the greatest harvest in our development as leaders. Now, this story, I love this story because it reminds me of my own. In 1991, I sat in the cheap seats of the Capitol Center because my dad didn't want to pay $20 for a seat in section 119. Today, I look at my dad and I say, Dad, you paid $20 for the cheap seats. You know, he didn't want to pay $20 to put me close to Irvin Magic Johnson. So one day, he took me to see Irvin in section 409 with my binoculars. I thought that was Magic. Maybe it was Kareem. Maybe it was Kurt Rambis. I don't know. But they did have on purple and gold. That's all I knew. And the ticket did say Lakers. So I'm watching these guys mop the floor, and I lean over to my dad because at the time, I just knew I was going to the league, but as you can see, I'm vertically challenged at 5'7". I leaned over to my dad and I said, Dad, I want to do what the guys are doing on the floor. And he said, what are they doing? I said, they're cleaning up Urban Magic Johnson's beat of sweat. I want to do that. He said, okay, we got to find out how to do it. Didn't even know how to do it, so I wrote a letter, Washington Bullets, Ballboy job openings, Capitol Center, I want to apply. So I had a great mentor. She said, now listen, Damon, I want you to dress up. Don't go in and sit in on the seat, going, and you be ready to answer all of their questions. And then you have a few questions to ask them. So I walk in my beautiful suit, and I walk through the door, and I can hear the angels sing. This is your time. And I'm going, thank you, God. I've been waiting for this because I was sitting in the cheap seats with my dad. Now I can be around with the players. I walk in, and everybody in the room is dressed in sweatpants. So I'm like, wait, I got a leg up. So I go in, and they ask me all of the questions. I do really well. A month later, they call me back, and they say, Damon, this is Glenn Moore from the Washington Bullets. I want you to know that you had one of the best interviews we've ever had. Unfortunately, we cannot offer you the job. I'm like, what? Everybody else was in swimming trunks and tank tops. They thought this was a party. This was serious to me. I wanted, just like Mr. Barnes, a partnership with my favorite players. And you're telling me no? He goes, but Damon, we would like to offer you an opportunity to be game help and pass out things at the door. My flesh was like, no! Slow motion. But then I felt like God said, take it. So I took it, and I got off the phone, and I went to my mom. I'm 15 years old. I said, Mom, I didn't get it. And without hesitation, she looks at me and says, that is not what we are believing for. That is not what your goal is. That is not what your dream is. She said, what did you see? I said, well, Mom, I saw myself as a Washington Bullets ball boy. She says, then that is what God's called you to. She said, every day of your life, I want you to declare that you are a ball boy for the Washington Bullets. So here, I want you to write this down. If you and I are going to be successful in business, the first thing is we have to see what it is that God's called us to see. We have to see the success. But then we have to declare the success. See, the declaration for me was verbal. There was no way that I was going to go down on the floor and sweep. But for you and I, in the business world, what it is, it's practice. It's preparation for the thing that we see. See, you and I might want to have a business that rakes in tens of millions of dollars every year. But if we're not putting in the work, sorry to tell us, we're not going to reach it. If we want to raise from being this level of an employee to the CEO of the company, we have to take on every single task that seems so small, but that can produce in our life great harvest in the development of our leadership. You with me so far? You tell me if I'm too passionate. I have to be. They told me no. So I tell them yes, and every day of my life, I'm walking through my house because my mom is making me. I thank you, God, that I'm a ball boy for the Washington Bullets. I thank you, God, that I'm a ball boy for the Washington Bullets. So I'm standing at the door, and even though I'm not a ball boy for the Washington Bullets, people are coming in, Tanner, and I'm like, how you doing? I'm a ball boy for the Washington Bullets. They know I'm not a ball boy for the Washington Bullets. I'm a volunteer game assistant. So the season starts. I'm working at the door. 1 month into the season, I get a phone call. Damon, this is Glenn Morrow from the Washington Bullets. Someone left. And we want to know if you'll be a ball boy for the Washington Bullets. You know what I said, don't you? I said, you're crazy. No, I'm just kidding. I said, what took you so long? What took you so long? I've been waiting for this moment all my life. Well, Phil Collins. And so I said, absolutely. And this is what God showed me. God showed me that through my service, there are opportunities that are created. Look, I wrote this down in my, well, I typed it in my iPad. I would have totally been lying. Look, an opportunity is this. It's a favorable situation that allows you and I to attain success or the goal that we're shooting for. As I said, for Mr. Barnes, his opportunity came through the back door. For me, my opportunity was, you're serving in section 219 at the door. If I say no, I'm not even standing in front of you today. But because I said yes, and my mom said, what do you see? You declare it. I'm here. So the opportunity was there. It was presented to me. So 3 months into the season, somebody else leaves. This is crazy now. They're working with players in the locker room. So they're about to change my title. They walk over to me and say, Damon, you were a ball boy. We want to put you in the locker room with the players. Now I'm getting my dance on. I'm doing every dance I know how. Bring it back. It's amazing. I went from volunteer to ball boy. Now they want me to hang out with Michael Jordan every single game. Are you kidding me, God? All of this happens because I'm serving. So I'm serving in the locker room. And at the end of the season, the head locker room guy leaves. Oh my gosh! Do you know who they asked to head up the visiting locker room? Watch. To lead is to what? Serve. The smallest of tasks can produce the greatest development of leadership. Now, can I fast forward? Can I fast forward? And please understand, I'm only using I in the terms of this setting so that we can pull out the leadership that God has shown me. I don't go around telling people all of the stuff God's done from this aspect. But for this atmosphere, there's so many lessons. So watch. So I am serving, and it seems like every time I serve, I then get a call from the University of Maryland basketball team. They need an athletic trainer to be a student. So now, they called me. Are you kidding me? We have an indoor soccer team. They need a head equipment manager. They called me. See, here's what happens. When you and I seize on the opportunity, it creates experience. Experience. Experience is a foundation that leads us to promotion. That's what experience is. It's a foundation that leads us to promotion. It's the wisdom that you and I gain through practical application and implementation. See, if you and I don't take the opportunities that seem so small but that can produce great leadership development, we miss out on the experience. So think about yourselves where you are right now and the goals and the quotas that we might be trying to hit. And it seems like we can never get above the ceiling. Where can we serve that we normally would turn down? Can we seize the opportunity, which would then allow us to be like Mr. Barnes and end up a partner with one of the greatest inventors of all time? So we get opportunity, we get experience. So I'm working with the trainer for the Maryland Terrapins, and he's telling me so many amazing things about athletic training. And we have a coach. Anybody ever heard of Gary Williams? Yeah. Okay, if you know Gary Williams, I'm sweating now. But he sweats like when he gets out of his car. And Coach Gary was a passionate yeller. And when we'd be in practice, if we didn't react fast enough to the athlete, he'd yell at us. Or if the athlete got hurt, he'd yell at us. And so I'd ask JJ, I say, JJ, how do you deal with this? And he'd walk me through and say, Damon, listen, I've been doing this for 25 years. He's a legend in the athletic training community. And he says, now, Damon, when you are in situations that are hostile, the key to your success is you remain calm. And while you're remaining calm, you think about a way to solve the problem. See, here it is. So I have an opportunity, which is then developing experience, but it's also allowing me the opportunity for mentorship. See, at your table right now, you have been provided, and every month you are provided an opportunity to be mentored. See, if you're like me sometimes, I look at someone in a different industry and I say, well, how can they help me? But in all actuality, it could be an opportunity for larger leadership development. So you never know who you're sitting by. You never know who can unlock the door to the goals that you and I are trying to accomplish. So I'm talking to JJ, and JJ is giving me all sorts of wisdom. So it's now time again for the NBA season. It's 1997. I've just finished my season with the Maryland Terrapins. And I go back and I see the head athletic trainer for the Orlando Magic. And I just throw something crazy out there. I said, you should hire me as your student intern. And he says, hey, you know what? That's a great idea. And I was like, he's just playing with my mind. The season ends. He calls me in July. And he says, Damon, guess what? I talked to John Gabriel. For the first time ever, we're going to have an athletic trainer intern. And I want you to be that. Are you kidding me? He said, Damon, the way you served me and the team every time we came through, and from every single person that I've talked to around the league, they said that every time they come to Washington, all of the Ballboy staff and the locker room staff serves them so well. I think that you could do that for the Orlando Magic. So I get to the Orlando Magic, and after 1 year, he goes to New Jersey. And he looks at me and he says, Damon, I want to take you with me to be my assistant, athletic trainer, head equipment manager. And this is where my life shifts. See, when you're serving, you gain opportunities, which allows for experience, creates an opportunity for us to be mentored. But then it exposes us. I'm in Orlando when I started off in Maryland, but I actually started off at 212 handing out magnet schedules. See, it's the same in our business. Opportunities come along every day. They slide through the back door, but here's the thing. They're knocking, and if you and I don't answer them, guess where they go? To somebody else's address. So we're saying, God, open up the door. Give me an opportunity. And God's like, man, I've sent like 5 this week. I'm serious. And so you and I are working at the job, and sometimes we go, oh, I just can't advance in this company. God's like, hey, your boss man or your boss woman asked you to make 7 extra copies, and you said no. My wife is executive director for Habitat for Humanity, and we lived in Orlando, Florida, and she was on the President's Leadership Council for UCF. And she got to know a billionaire by the name of Harris Rosen, who runs the Rosen Hotels in Orlando. I'm walking through the hotel one day, and I see this man in shorts and a polo. And he walks by, and there's paper on the trash, and he picks up the paper and he throws it in the trash. And then he walks by someplace else, and he straightens it up. And I'm thinking to myself, who is this guy? So I asked my wife who it is, and she says, that is the owner, the billionaire, Harris Rosen. And I'm like, are you serious he's picking up his own trash? And it dawned on me to lead. And you walk around and everyone's like, Mr. Rosen, and he's like, hey, Samantha. So if he asks them to do something, they're like, absolutely. Opportunity creates experience, mentorship, then visibility. Here's the final thing, and I hope I'm okay with time. Am I? Great. I think we're doing pretty good. When you and I seize the opportunity, gain the experience, we're mentored in every aspect. God, throughout the whole process, has been developing in us the right heart. I've had so many mentors in my life. Tim Hardaway, one of my favorite basketball players, I told him my dream. And at the end of one basketball game, after he's played 30-plus minutes, he's in the locker room. He just needs to get in the shower, get on the bus. He pulls out his autographed sneakers, and he hands them to me. He said, hey, Damon, I want to tell you something. I heard your dream loud and clear, and I want to tell you something. Don't ever give up on your dream. I watched Michael Jordan, who I served so many times. I told him one time, I said, Michael, I'm not going to be here, man. I want your sneakers. For my college and my kids. And I told him, I said, Michael, I'm not going to be here. So I find a way to make it to the game. He comes walking down the hall, and he says, what are you doing here? And it just allowed me to learn that if I take time to remember people, it develops me in my success. So we gain the right heart from the opportunity, the experience, the mentorship, and the visibility. The visibility that you want your company all starts because to lead is to serve. Remember, the smallest task can produce in our lives the greatest of harvests in our leadership. The right heart. One of my favorite players of all time that I really connected with when I started working with the Orlando Magic. I remember I said there was a change. Remember I said that about 3-4 minutes ago. Grant Hill was one of my favorite players. And if you're a Dookie, I know you know him. But Grant Hill was amazing to me because I started telling him what I felt like God was leading me to do. I had just been offered an opportunity to come and do sports by my pastor. Because my pastor would come to the basketball games and he saw me working with the players. Remember I mentioned visibility? And he asked me if I would come and run the sports ministry at his church. And I felt like God was saying, your season is ending in pro sports. And I was talking to Grant. I said, Grant, I want to put on a basketball court. And here's a man who had just signed a 7-year, $94 million contract. I'd known him for many years. I never asked the players for anything. All I did was whatever they needed me to do, even though I was making good money, if they asked me to carry the bag, I carried the bag. It was fine. I've been doing it since I was 16, passing out magnet schedules. And he looks at me one day with the big heart that he has. He says, however I can support you, I will. And he meant it. However I can support you, I will. And this is what God showed me. Watch. From the small opportunity to gaining the experience, to being mentored, to be an athletic trainer, God had been providing visibility for me, developing my heart, connecting me with the right people, all so that I could be a person of influence. I didn't say anything except my dream of wanting to do a sports league. And here it is, someone who has a like heart said, whatever you need, I'll support. But here's what's amazing about influence. It all started because I took a small task and God showed me that it was valuable. And when I was about to give up on it, my mom said, you declare it, because we saw it together. I can remember, I just want to show you because I want to end with the whole mission of Called to Business. Called to Business is here because we as leaders in business, or retirees, whatever stage of life we're in, we want to be able to represent Christ to the fullest without having to take our Bible out and go, get saved. Right? We want people to look at us and say, something's different about you. I want to prove it, and I'm wrapping up. We had the toughest of time getting Grant Hill back on the court. He had a major ankle problem. And one day, the training room was full, and Grant leans over to me and he says, Damon, I want you to pray for my ankle. And me and my scared spirituality, with people in the locker room, I said, I absolutely will. And he says, no. I want you to pray for my ankle right now. I was a ballboy in Section 220 handing out magnet schedules. And here I am, working with my players, who I told my dad that all I wanted to do was just clean up their sweat. And here it is, Grant Hill asked me to pray for his ankle. I leave that season, go to the summer. I'm working with the WNBA's Orlando Miracle. And same scenario. Once again, please understand the I for this presentation. It's not about me. I'm leading us all back to Jesus. I'm working with the WNBA's Orlando Miracle. And the players are starting to ask me, hey, there's something different about you. Can you open up our games in prayer? So here I am, in a circle with a bunch of ladies. I'm their athletic trainer. And they're asking me to pray. So after I pray, they ask me, well, hey, where do you go to church? I said, well, I go to this church here. So I'm at the church, and I'm going back and forth now, doing the sports, going to the NBA, WNBA games. And I look back, and they're in the building. We just so happen to have one of those services where our pastor preaches a message about salvation. And all of a sudden, I see 3 of the athletes from my team giving their heart to Jesus. Now watch. I promise you. They get saved. Now, so many times in our business, we worry about the bottom line, right? We want to make sure that we still produce the goals that we're trying to attain. So I'm running the sports ministry, and I'm trying to buy uniforms. And one of the young ladies that got saved at the church that they came to, that I was a part of, wins the inaugural WNBA Community Service Award. $5,000 is her award. She calls me up on the phone and she says, Damon, I need a place to donate this. You know why I'm leaving, right? I said, give it to the church across the street. I didn't say that. I said, if you will allow the Faith World of Sports League that I'm transitioning into, would be more than happy to receive it in your honor. So ladies and gentlemen, I came by today to tell you that the position by which we serve, you're there strategically. And the business by which we run, we serve in, has to have the element of a servant's heart. Because as we learned in the example of Mr. Barnes, and just a few of the stories from my own personal life that I hope that will aid us in getting to our goals, if you and I seize every opportunity, whether they seem insignificant or not, but we seize every opportunity, then we gain experience for the level that which we dream about. We gain mentorship, through the people that are sitting at our tables, which then exposes us to those who want our products and our services. All because God's been developing the right heart. And then the influence comes. And so, over the last 20 years of my life, God has really showed me, even when I've been out of line and I can see that sometimes it's hard to push through, God says, Damon, you need to go back to having a servant's heart. It was successful for David, successful for Moses, successful for Joshua, and it's successful for Edwin C. Barnes, the partner of Thomas Edison. Thank you very much for your time.
Everybody's got some. Whatever you look like you got one.
Yeah. So I touched on it earlier, but you're a certified speaker for Monster.com. Can you elaborate on what you're doing around the country with that?
Webb's question was, I'm a certified speaker for Monster.com. In 2010, Monster.com was looking for speakers who they could certify to speak to high school students about preparation for college. And sent in one of my speaking presentations. They brought us in for a 2-day extensive training on some of the materials that they wanted to learn. And over the last 2 years, I've had the privilege of speaking on their behalf. I'm going from all over this state, all across the country. And students are eager for a college education. And one of the things that Monster found is that some of the information that they get is limited, or the students just don't put in the work to accomplish the goals that they want. And so it's a great opportunity that God has given me to be able to speak to students across the country. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think I speak for everybody here. I'm ready to run out of here with the service heart after hearing that message. But how do you maintain that service heart after you encounter roadblocks? Whether it's in the workplace, at home, at church, on a basketball court?
Well, just, my story is 20 years of mistakes. Do you know what I'm saying? I got to share with you all the highlights. But roadblocks for me has been when I wrestled with God about going in the opportunity that He had provided, but I wanted to stay with pro sports. And so what happened was when I wrestled with God about transitioning, I went 1 whole year tough financially. When what I should have done was I should have seized on the opportunity. And so I created my own roadblock because I didn't leave when I was supposed to. And so many times in our business, it's time to refresh. But yesterday was good, and yesterday brought us the success we wanted. And for me, that was it. I wrestled with God 2 years after I was even in ministry full time. My wife will tell you that I was still receiving phone calls, and I was trying to apply for jobs, meeting with people, and God never let it work. I always stayed stale for a longer period of time. And as soon as I said, God, I'll do whatever you ask me to do, because this is what God asked me. And can I be just really transparent with you? God asked me if I just wanted to serve the 12 people. And that would be as good as it was for me. And when God said that to me, I made a clean break. And then God started opening up doors. Doesn't mean that I didn't cause my own mistakes. I caused a lot of my own mistakes in my own leadership development because I refused to do certain tasks. And then once I realized that God was giving me smaller tasks that would develop me for leadership, it's amazing. I was working with our youth pastor, and we were great friends, and he became a senior pastor. And I served him when he was a youth pastor, and we were the same. We were equal. But I served him at an event, and he called me a year later when he became a senior pastor and said, the qualities that you have are the qualities that I'm looking for in an executive pastor. And it's amazing because even when I got to the church, the CFO of the church mentored me. The associate pastor mentored me. And there was a lot of people who I normally in my past would have ran with just because I was like, I'm not trying to do that work. It was like God had said, you've already made this mistake once. Don't do it again. And so I created a lot of my own roadblocks, and it kept me there longer. Did I answer your question? So my own mistakes kept me holding on for a while.
And I've got one.
Yes, sir.
What do you do when you're presented with what look like two good opportunities, you know, and you're trying to decide, and they're mutually exclusive, but you're trying to decide what to do? What would be your advice in that situation?
One of my favorite verses, can I be biblical? One of my favorite verses is in Isaiah. I think it's 30:21. It says, you shall hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. Whether you go to the left hand or to the right hand. And so in any opportunity that is presented to me, I always go, okay, God, which way do I go? And I know it seems very spiritual, but since He is the CEO of our lives, I have to make sure that the route that I go is where He wants to go. And normally, whenever I've made a decision that's wrong, I'm always uneasy. I'm always uneasy. And once again, like the gentleman asked right here, it always turns into a roadblock, and I feel like I'm in the same spot longer. But whenever I step out in faith and I feel like I have the confirmation of God, it seems like the road is smooth. Doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but it just seems like there's a peace from the first step. And so Isaiah 31 is one of my life verses on making decisions. And I've been there. You know, the gentleman right there, do I stay with sports? Do I do ministry? Because ministry was frightening to me. Growing up, everyone told me that ministers don't make money, that you have to live poor. So when God said, hey, you're going to serve me, I was like, oh, no, I'm not. Hey, check. But then God showed me, hey, Damon, that is someone else's viewpoint.
Right.
That is their viewpoint, not what I called you to. And once God showed me that, hey, Damon, your family's going to be blessed. If you do what I ask you to do, peace. Yes, sir.
Damon, that was pretty much going to be my question. Can you elaborate on the transition, I guess, from the dependency on the NBA job versus stepping out to ministry? Can you just elaborate on that? How, did you take a different pay? And then did you recruit after the years? Can you elaborate on that?
There was a lot of tears. A lot of tears. A lot of wrestling because for all of my life, I wanted to be in pro sports. And I felt like, once again, being totally transparent, I felt like God had set me up, like He tricked me. Do you know what I mean? Has anybody ever been there? You step out in your business and you feel like God's called you to do it, asked you to do it, and you get out there and nobody's like asking you for your product. Nobody's promoting you for the job that you took that was less pay. That's how I felt. I felt like, God, you're tricking me. Because I'd already turned down a job to New Jersey to stay in Orlando, and now you want me to do ministry. Why? And here's how God kind of confirmed it for me. When I turned down ministry, I found my wife. And the minute I found my wife, the Bible says I found a good thing.
Yes, sir.
And then I realized, if I'm in New Jersey, I don't need my wife. So it was like God just started confirming for me that I was in the right place. And even though I wasn't making as much money as I wanted to make, it was like God was just developing me. And literally, within 3 years, they ordained me as a pastor. I became the outreach pastor, and they gave me more money. And they started allowing me to do things with my speaking, which would ultimately be my ultimate passion. And so it was hard, but there was such a reliance because God started confirming my decisions. It wasn't like immediately we had 500 kids in our sports ministry. But what did happen was God sent me my awesome wife, and she's right there. She sent me my awesome wife, and it was like God just confirmed all the seasons. And as I seized on opportunities, and I just did everything that was asked of me, our sports ministry grew. We received grants. The mayor gave us a day. It was like God, everything that might have been delayed at the beginning because I fought with God, God said, I'm redeeming because you finally got it. And it took me a long time of, like I said, tons of mistakes. Tons of mistakes. Yes, sir.
How do I remain patient while I'm serving?
Prepare. prepare. Because once again, the smallest of tasks prepares you for the greatest of your future. Here's the thing that God's told me. I've asked God to allow me to speak to businesses and civic organizations and churches since I was a teenager. And the one thing that people have always said, are you prepared? Are you prepared for the level that you dream about? Because if you're not prepared for the level that you dream about, you'll sink and you'll feel like you failed and you'll give up on what's really your destiny. But here's what you can do, is if you prepare right now. T.D. Jakes said this. I went to a conference and he had 300 of the youngest pastors. And he said, the people who are in front of you should hear you coming because your preparation is so intense. So the thing that you're dreaming about right now, you should be eating, sleeping, waking up, thinking about it all day. Somebody is outworking you and I. Therefore, whatever it is that you want to do, if you prepare every moment of the day, the people who are in front of you will hear you coming. So while you're waiting, prepare. I like it. I see your passion.
Anybody else? I just want to say thank you again to David. That was absolutely incredible. I think everybody would agree. Let's give him another round.